Oh, what's wrong, little guy? Scared of the dark? Here, have a glowing demon heart. Parenting is easy.
Benjamin Radford explains that there's three basic categories within the Chupacabra mythos. There's the Latin American Chupacabra, which is variously described as a creature from 3 to 5 feet tall, may have 3 to 4 fingers, has feathery spines down its back, meaning that they're thorn-like protuberances or feather-like. Big bug-type eyes, etc. Then there's the North American Chupacabra, which is basically just foxes, wolves, those kinds of animals that had suffered from a disease that causes the loss of fur, so they look rather strange. And these have simply been verified scientifically as DNA has been pulled from them and tested, and they're just good old-fashioned wolves and foxes, etc. And then there's a miscellaneous category where basically anything that you sort of see or runs across the road or a kind of a strange dead animal, anything can just be labeled a Chupacabra. Usually because, you don't really have another explanation for it. And calling in a report of roadkill is not quite as exciting as calling in a report of a Chupacabra. Now, the first witness account of a Chupacabra dates to 1995 AD, and this was in Puerto Rico, with the typical Latin American description. From there, the story was eventually picked up by the Christina show, which is basically the Latin American version of Oprah, all right? Very influential, very popular. And from there on, you can trace reports of the Chupacabra along the path where the Christina show was aired. And this seems to be caused by what's known as the copycat effect. So in other words, people started seeing things they couldn't quite identify, so they just labeled it Chupacabra. So it seems that when the original account was labeled Chupacabra, once you place a label or a name or you put a phrase out there, then people start matching it with a face, right? So now you have a term you can use, and then whatever you see, you just place that label on it. And well, granted, this can range from hoaxers to people just trying to gain popularity, to people who just honestly claim or honestly think that they saw this strange little creature. So Benjamin's solution, it really struck a chord with me because of my research that I published in writing and slideshow format and video, which I titled 50 Shades of Grey Aliens, and how I sought to track whence came the typical gray alien look. All right, that basic look of an alien. Where did it come from? And so I traced it back through fantasy literature, fictional literature, and especially science fiction literature, comic books, movies, etc., all the way back to the late 1800s. And so I saw how in that case, it's the old question of, does art imitate life or does life imitate art? So where's that line between fact and fiction, and how much fiction influences fact and how much fact influences fiction? Although my view on the whole alien issue is really a lot more complex, but that's not relevant right now. Within that particular study, I took the point of view that the common ideal of a gray alien came about through speculation about what future humans would look like. And of course, if future humans would look like that, then of course aliens could look like that as well, because after all, they're so much more advanced than us. But I don't want to divert into that. What struck me is that Benjamin noted that 1995, the date of the original Chupacabra report, eyewitness report, is the same year that the movie Species came out. Now, the main creature in the movie Species looks like what? Well, kind of bug, big bug eyes, thorny protuberances down its back, which are ridged so they could be described as feathered. Spindly arms. I think it has 3 or 4 digits on its clawed hands. Very basically the description of the Chupacabra. It might be a little more humanoid and tall in the movie, but it's the same basic template. In fact, the original 1995 Chupacabra eyewitness was from Puerto Rico, and went on to state that she had viewed that movie and she was amazed, thinking, how could they make a movie about what's happening in Puerto Rico? And in fact, the movie Species begins with a scene from Puerto Rico. So is it a case of the supposed eyewitness seeing a movie and then making up a story to get famous? Benjamin doubts it, mostly because, yeah, after some time of being interviewed, the witness just kind of went back to her normal everyday life. It's not like she's making the crypto-zoology talk circuit route or something. It might have been a psychological issue with her, that she saw something she didn't quite identify, some kind of animal, and in her mind brought up these images of a movie, the creature from which she claims had really affected her. Well, basically, there's no telling why or what happened. All we do know is that it just so happens that in 1995, a creature very much like what later comes to be termed the Latin American Chupacabra was depicted in a science fiction movie. And Benjamin also points out that 2 of the main explanations for the Chupacabra is either alien UFO activity or government DNA experimentation. And it just so happens that within the movie Species, you have both of those elements. You have an alien creature that ends up on Earth and becomes subject of government genetic experimentation. So overall, I think he makes a really strong case. Basically, Category 3 of miscellaneous Chupacabra is what it is. It's just a giant grab bag calling whatever you can't quite recognize a Chupacabra. Category 2, North American Chupacabra, is just animals. And Category 1, the Latin American Chupacabra, you can trace the sightings back to where the Chupacabra story was told through the Christina show, and the original sighting to have some correlation with the release of the movie Species. So lastly, since during a talk I attended, Benjamin noted that the first report of a Chupacabra was in 1995, I mentioned to him that I had heard somewhere that an old TV show referenced a Chupacabra. And I followed up quickly with, but that wouldn't necessarily tell me that they're referring to some kind of cryptozoological blood-sucking animal. They could have just been talking about some kind of animal that ate a goat or whatever, right? Chupacabra meaning goat sucker. And he was aware of this, so he says, yes, it's from a Bonanza show. And indeed, within the show, what was being referred to as a Chupacabra was just an animal that was drinking the goat's milk, right? Goat sucker. It was sucking the goat's milk. So this is one of those things that you'll hear out there in cryptozoological circles. Oh, these chupacabras, they've been around for a really long time. I mean, in the 60s, they even mentioned them in the Bonanza show. Yeah, but that has absolutely nothing to do with it, and is why it's important to double check these things. So overall, I think he's done a great job, and as far as I'm concerned, he has solved the Chupacabra mystery.
Valiente, óyese, Chupacabra. ¿Dónde está nuestro hijo? Ay, San José, protégelo.
What's the matter with your wife?
She have heard the Chupacabra. You know, Chupacabra is those birds, how you call them? Whippoorwill? Whippoorwill, that's right. And you know those birds, they are very mala suerte. That means bad luck. That's why she is worried that Epifanio didn't return back from creek.
Esmeralda, you call that whippoorwill?
Chupacabra, senor. That means in Spanish, goat sucker. Because those bad birds, they steal all the milk from the goats.
Oh, I don't believe a goat would stand still for it.
It is true, senor. I have seen with my own eye. The lot of goats come back from pasture, no milk.
Well, I don't prove nothing.
Sure it proves. Why not?
Well, have you ever actually seen one of them birds milking a goat?
Let me remember. Well, no, I cannot truly say that I have seen. But I have not seen many things in life, and it's so short.
This I gotta see. The coffee-drinking bull.
Also muerto?
Huh?
Dead?
Yeah, he's dead.